I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I'm the host of this show, and I'm glad to have you along listening today, wherever it is you're listening and whenever it is that you might be listening in. Today's episode is sponsored by my dear friend Lachelle Head. Lachelle sponsors me through Patreon. Patreon is a platform where listeners can partner with creatives like myself who have some bigger mission and vision in mind. Mine is to use this running journey that I have experienced the last several years, in which I have found a lot more than a physical strength. I've discovered a real mental strength, a real spiritual strength that comes in this running, and I think really parallels some of the strengths, some of what we need to overcome in these life challenges over here. I so often say life is like running, and mainly because running really prepares us for these big races, these challenges that we so often don't think we're up for. And I think that's exactly what we need in life, to see some of these things that we take on every day as building blocks for some challenges down the road. So folks like Lachelle, who sponsor me through Patreon in a financial partnership, allow me to carve out more time in my day and seek out more of these stories, because this is more than about my story. In fact, my story is really the smallest piece of this. As I talk to more and more runners, more and more people connected to the running community, they really just help me magnify this strength that I found in my own running journey. And so folks like Lachelle give me the opportunity to share these stories with you and hopefully give you some light and some strength in your darkest days, or even in just somewhat dark days, to let you know that we do have the strength within us to overcome. So thank you, Lachelle. If you'd like to learn more about partnering with me and helping me grow this mission through Patreon, you can go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM47.com. Click on the Support Me tab, scroll down, and you can learn of all the different ways that you can support me, including partnering with me on Patreon. So thank you, Lachelle, and thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. You really give me a lot of confidence, and certainly the resources that I long for to keep growing this and reaching more people. Today's episode is a fun one. It is the third part in a series I've been doing with my dear friend Julie Bravo. Julie, last year after the Richmond Marathon, almost 1 year ago today, now we're coming up on it here in a couple of weeks, Julie decided that she was going to run her first marathon this year. And so for the last several months, we have been tracking her journey. She's been sharing the ups and downs in her training and everything that goes along with training for that first marathon. It's certainly, there's a lot of physical challenges, but Julie's been good to share the mental hurdles that come with it. She's shared the scheduling challenges that come with it when you're a mom of kids and you're a wife and you've got a full-time job. Some days just carving out the time to do this is just hard to imagine, but Julie's done it. She's done it in a big way. She's been really committed to this training schedule. And so today we are really on the final leg of this. She talks to me today about her long training runs, and then just some of what's going through her mind now as she is nearing the end of the plan and ready to take on the big moment that she's been preparing for. So it was a fun conversation. I hope you'll listen into it and enjoy part 3 of my conversation with Julie Bravo. I wanna welcome Julie Bravo back to the 21047.com podcast. This is our third conversation as part of a series of following Julie from an idea to run a marathon to actually training for it, and now just less than 3 weeks away from actually going to the starting line of her first marathon. So Julie's been great about sharing in our last two conversations just some of the mental challenges, the physical challenges, just the ebb and flow of emotions that go from, again, having this idea and committing to running a marathon is one thing, but then actually getting into it is quite another. And so anyway, welcome back, Julian. We're glad to dig more into this journey.
Thank you. It's good to be back, and I'm really enjoying talking about this. It's been a real good experience, so thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we will have it documented and recorded forever. So folks that get this idea themselves, they can go to it for reference to see what they may or may not be getting themselves into. So
perfect.
The last time we talked, I believe you had run your longest run ever, and that, I think if I remember right, was 16 miles. Well, since then, you've run 3 20-mile runs, and in marathon training, most plans that 20-mile hurdle is kind of that big. That's what everybody really points to. Once you the 20-mile run is sort of the peak of the training. And so I'm wondering how that first 20-mile run went for you.
Yeah, I have done 3, and they've all been really different. The first one was probably the most successful in that I really had no idea what I was getting into. Like you said, previously when we had spoken, 16 had been my longest run. And then after that, I did run an 18-mile run, which then became my longest run, which really wasn't too bad because in the scheme of things, running 2 more miles, it's not that big of a deal. So that was fine. But the 21 was just a real big mental hurdle. Oh my gosh, 20 is just, it sounds so huge. So what I decided to do is I just got myself up early one morning, and I have a 10-mile loop that I'm pretty familiar with in my community. A few hills, there's some straightaways. There's not a lot of stoplights, but there's a couple, which gives me a small opportunity to stop and catch my breath at a stoplight. So I decided to run that 10 miles, and then that would end me back in my house. That would be a great little place to recoup if I needed to have a quick pit stop, get some more fuel in me, and then I was going to just go back out and do the same thing again. And that's what I did. And I kind of warned my family what I was doing. I said, hey, I'm going to come back in about 2 hours or so, and I'm just coming back to grab some fuel and to use the bathroom. Please don't, hey, Mom, let me see this. Mom, let me, because I need to be in the zone. So I was a little bit short with my children when I got home because they were all, it was a Saturday morning or I think it was a Sunday morning, and they were watching TV, and I walk in, hey, Mom, what's going on? I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm just getting my fuel. And my husband, who is also training in his own way for this marathon journey, which I know we'll speak about more, he came downstairs as I was just grabbing some water, and he said, how far have you run so far? And I kind of lost it. I snapped at him, and I was like, what do you mean, how far have I run? I told you I was running 10 miles, that I was coming home, and now I'm going to run 10 more. So I was kind of a little frazzled, I think, because, it was hot, and I was tired, and I just ran 10, and now I knew I had to go back and do the whole thing over again. So it was a little overwhelming, but I snapped at him, and then I went on my way. And at that point, I believe I've gone through so many Audible books on this marathon journey, but I think I was in the middle of a pretty good book at that time. So I kind of just, put my headphones back in and got right back into the zone of listening to the audiobook. And I knew I could do it, and I did. I did it, and the last 10 took me a little bit longer than the first 10, but I got it done. And when I got home, I felt so accomplished, and it was a real good moment for me. And I also, as soon as I got home, I apologized to my husband and my kids, and because I knew I had been short with them. And I said, it was the running talking. I was, I don't know what angry, I think people have said. They moved running and angry into one word, or I don't know what was going on with me, but I knew it was my emotions. And then I was done, and they were all proud of me, and I was really proud of myself. So it was a good first time. There was no big issues that came up during my first 20-mile run.
And so then the next 2, how did the next 2 go then?
Okay, the next two were both different. The second one was great in the fact that I ran with one of my running friends who I met through the Meg's Miles group, like I met you, my friend Anna. She lives a little bit over an hour away from me, and she offered, I think she had about 18 miles to run that day, so she offered to do 20 with me. We would do it together, and I was really nervous the night before because I knew I'd have to get up really early to get up to her neck of the woods to get the run in. And it was on a Sunday, and I had sports commitments with my kids that afternoon. So I knew I just really had a time crunch. So I was up about 4:15 in the morning and out the door by 5 to drive up to see her. And when I got up there, she had we live in Southern California, so she had a great path that was all along the ocean. It was a beautiful path, and it was a really nice run. It was different because I usually listened to podcasts or audible books while I'm running, and the books that I listen to are autobiographies. And when Anna and I ran together, I didn't have any music or any books or podcasts. It was chatting with her the whole time, which was great, but I'm also not used to talking when I run. And we were running a fairly even pace, so it wasn't that I was out of breath and couldn't run. We weren't running super fast, but I'm just not used to that conversation. So it was nice in a way, but it was also just a little different for me to get used to actually be, conversing with someone instead of, kind of zoning out and just listening to my headphones where I wouldn't have to respond. But it was good. It was great, actually. The weather was perfect. When I've been doing my runs, I've been doing intervals where I run a few miles at my normal pace, and then when I hit the mile mark, I walk for 0.2 of a mile, and then I run at my normal pace for the last 0.8 of a mile. And that's what I've been doing during my training, and it works really well for me because when I start to get tired, I know I have no more than 0.8 of a mile to run, and then I can get a little walking break. Anna runs differently than I do, and she just kind of runs most of the run at a slower pace. So I said, let's try that. It was fine with me. And so it was a different type of run where I'm used to stopping every certain amount of time. We weren't doing that, but we were running at an overall slower pace that was comfortable, and it was doable, and it was a nice change to see, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. It just gave me options. And the first few miles seemed like they took forever when we were running. I was like, oh my gosh, we were only at 5 miles. Like, it seemed kind of daunting. But then before I knew it, we were at 12. And then I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we just have 8 left. And that was kind of a turnaround point for us. So we were going back to our car. And the last 2 or 3 miles just flew by. So it was good. It was a good experience.
Yeah, so I wonder because, and I'm just curious about that personally, because I run by myself and most of the time with music, sometimes with podcasts and books. And I mean, that's exclusively how I run. I just don't think I could. I've run some short runs with other people, different, like Meg's Memorial Run, just some different things like that. So talk to me. I mean, for you, is that something you think you could get used to or you would embrace, or are you just a run by myself person, do you think, going forward?
I think I prefer to run by myself. The great thing about running with Anna on that day was when I was feeling a little bit tired, when I was like, okay, this is where I would normally where I would normally stop to walk for a bit. Yeah. I thought to myself, well, she's running, so I got to do this. So I pushed myself to keep running. Which was good, but I like running by myself. I think that's pretty much my groove, and it's going to be interesting, I think, on marathon day to have so many people obviously running around me. And I've heard stories just from listening to other runners how quite often, they kind of find someone that's their own pace, and even if it's a stranger, and they kind of end up running with them, and they support each other and kind of push each other on, and you just kind of find friends along the course. And so in the back of my mind, I'm always wondering, I wonder if I'm going to meet up with someone that I might run with, or I might run into one of my friends that I actually know on the course, and if we do come up to each other, do we just smile and then keep going on our merry way, or do we try to run together? So it's a lot going on in my head. I don't know what's going to happen, but in the scheme of my general running, I think running by myself and not having that extra added part of my brain thinking about, well, am I running the right pace? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Do they want to go faster? Am I holding them back? Do they want to go slower and I'm pushing them too far? My brain kind of goes on overload. So when it's just me, I don't have anyone else to worry about, and I can just concentrate on, myself. So
yeah,
I think I'm more of a solo runner.
Yeah, we're very similar in that, and I'm the same way. Even with a half marathon, the marathon, for me it's almost a fear. I don't want to run into anybody I know because then I have to figure out how to tell them I don't want to run with you. And it's not it's not a personal thing, and I don't want anybody to take it personal. But it's just kind of my do it by myself thing, and I think you just probably answered some of that for me. It's my mind is set on my pace, my thoughts. I don't want to have to wonder or think about anything else, like you just said. I think you just answered a lot of the why for me in that. So that's interesting. I want to ask, so you've done 3 20-milers, and most plans, and I know through social media, I've followed some of these conversations, and folks have given different advice, and there's been conversations around this. A lot of the plans, the people that I follow, marathon training plans, and certainly the one that I did, call for 1 20-mile run near the end of your training plan. You've done 3 of them. Now, obviously, this is your first marathon, so you really don't have anything to compare that to, but I'm just wondering, doing 3 20-mile runs, do you feel like it's given you more confidence? Do you feel like you're better prepared? Do you have any thoughts on running those 3 20-milers?
Sure. Well, the plan that I chose to follow is the marathon training team's plan for the Richmond Marathon. Because again, I did not know what I was doing. And I said, well, these people, this is what they do. This is their race. They train people there. I'm going to follow their plan. And when they sent their plan out, they had intermediate schedules and novice schedules for running. And although this is my first marathon, I've run about over 20 half marathons. So I figured, I'm not a novice at running. I'm not, advanced by any means, but I'm going to choose to follow the intermediate plan versus the novice plan just because I'm used to running. And the novice plan did have 1 20-miler, I believe, but the intermediate had these 3. And at first it was very overwhelming looking at this from someone who had never run more than 13.1 miles to see 14, 16, 18, 20, 20, 20 on this plan. But I am really glad that I do have 3 20-milers under my belt because, like I said, the first one, I didn't really know what I was doing. It went well, though. And, it gave me that confidence, like, I can do this. And then the second one gave me the opportunity to try some things differently. I did the different running with someone. I didn't do my normal intervals, so it gave me another way to look at it. And then my third one that I just did this past weekend, I think, was really hard. And it was not a good run for me. And I've been listening to different podcasts from running coaches. And a lot of them have said, you really should have a bad run. Don't be upset if you have a bad run before your marathon because everyone has bad runs. And it's just statistically, you're going to have bad runs. And wouldn't you rather have a bad run prior to race day than having race day be a bad run?
Right.
And so I really thought about that when I was kind of dissecting what went wrong not went wrong, but why my run wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. And the last 20-miler that I did, I did it from my home, and I was planning on doing the same route that I had done on my first one, 10 miles out and back, stop and grab some fuel, and then do the next 10. So I did that. It was real hot. We're having a heat wave in Southern California, and I wasn't able to start as early as I wanted to. So I knew it was going to be, really hot when I was running. And the first 10 went fine, no problems at all. And I decided for the second 10, instead of going out and back, I was just going to run some loops through my housing development. About 5 loops would get me 10 more miles. And this way I was close to my house. I'd run past my house every 2 miles so that I could grab more water if I needed to. And I was fine from miles 10 through 15. No problem. Everything was great. At about mile 16, I was just getting tired, and there's a couple of hills that started bothering me. The downhill portion specifically was making my knees hurt. So I would kind of walk down the downhill section. And then when I'd get to the uphill section, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm tired. I don't want to run that. So I'd kind of walk that. And I was watching my pace, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to walk for a mile. I'm pretty tired, and who cares what time I finish? It doesn't, no one cares but me, what I'm doing. Let me just walk a mile. And then hopefully I'll have more energy and I can finish a little stronger. So I started to walk mile 16, and then I paused my Garmin to call my husband. I was almost out of water, and I knew I could walk home. So I asked him if he could leave some water on the porch for me, because I didn't want to go in and refill my handheld myself, because I knew I'd talk to my kids or I'd have a distraction. I just needed to finish this run, so I didn't want to go back into the house. And so he said, sure, he was leaving the water for me. And then I looked down at my watch again, and I see it says activity discarded. And that was like the kiss of death for me. I'm like, what do you mean my activity is discarded? Like, I just ran 16 miles. And thank goodness I had seen it said 16.4, so I knew where I had been. Because if I hadn't, let's just say I, didn't know where I was, it was sometime after 10, but nowhere near 20, I would have freaked out, not knowing how much more I had to run with the perfectionist in me.
Yes.
So that was tough. I started to cry, not sobbing, bawling, or anyone would have noticed driving by me, but definitely I was just frustrated, and tears of frustration started going down. And I called my husband right back, and he answered, and I said, oh my gosh, my Garmin, something happened and it says discarded, and I'm crying. He's like, well, don't cry. And I'm like, I know, but I know it's silly, but I'm so frustrated. He's like, he didn't quite get it, I don't think. And I don't know what I was looking for, but I wasn't getting the sympathy that I wanted from him. So I just sucked it up, and I said, fine, thanks, leave me the water. I'll be home soon. And I decided, you know what? It's not the end of the world. I'm just going to start my watch again. And I did the math like 17 times in my head to make sure I was doing it right. Like, okay, I have to do 2.6 more miles. Because at first I thought it was like 3 point something. And then I'm like, wait, no, if I already went 60, I don't even know. My head was just going crazy. I'm like using my fingers, trying to calculate how far I have to run. And I finally figured out how much farther I had to run. And I decided just to get it done. And I was still hot, and it was tiring, and I walked and ran and walked and ran. I kind of threw my intervals out the window and just said, I just got to get this done. I have like 2.6 miles left to go. I'm just going to get this done. And I finished, and I was just annoyed when it was over, just because it didn't go the way I wanted to. The first two really had no problem. So the fact that I was hot and I really had no idea what my pace was for the first 16 miles bothered me, because I really hadn't been paying attention to the splits when I hit a mile. And I also had stopped during all my runs, I've had to stop to make real quick bathroom breaks, because I drink so much water in anticipation for my runs that I end up having to stop a couple times. And for my previous runs, I had paused my watch. And I decided, this time I'm not going to pause my watch, because when I have to stop on the course, the time's not going to stop for me. So I wanted to kind of get an idea, if I was stopping real quick for pit stops, how that's going to affect my race day finish time. So I had stopped twice in my first 10 miles at little 7-Elevens or gas stations to use the bathroom real quick, and I didn't pause my watch, but now I had no idea how long that actually took. So that was bothering me, because now I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to finish on race day. So I keep telling myself I don't care when I finish, I just want to finish, but, I'd like to have some kind of general idea, give myself like a 30 to 45 minute kind of goal, just to have something to work on. So it was a bit frustrating, but I really think that third 20 miler was important, because I needed to have these different experiences.
So a couple of questions. At first, a comment. I'm sitting here laughing because it was, a week or so ago, I went out and I had my mind, I was going to go run 9 miles. And so I ran out of town and then was headed back, and I looked down and my watch, the low battery started flickering, and then it was just gone. And I knew I was at like 7.5 miles. And without much thought, I just said, okay, I guess that's all the further I was supposed to run today, and just walked the rest of the way home. No emotion, no thrown off one bit by that. It was just kind of, oh, well, here we go. And I think it's just, it's well documented how structured, how rule following you've been to this. So I can just imagine how that messed with you that day. But I'm glad to hear you. I'm glad to hear you pulled through that. I was picturing folks in your neighborhood pulling over to console you and try to figure out what's wrong with you, and then to see the looks on their face when you explain to them your Garmin says you just lost all your activity. That might have caused some puzzlement. Yes,
they might have thought I was a very odd person. And I did, once I thought about it afterwards, and when I kind of got done with it and recouped a bit, I realized this was a good lesson for me. And I mean, running is so full of lessons. I've learned so much about myself, and I really have changed. I can talk to you about a few different runs I've modified throughout my training plan, which in the beginning I thought I would not modify anything. So I have become a little bit more relaxed, understanding things happen. And after the run, I realized, just because my Garmin says I ran, 2.6 or 3.6, whatever the math ended up being that I ended up showing that I ran, obviously I did run 20 miles. It doesn't matter that my Facebook page does not show that 20-mile picture that I'd like to post every day, because I am big on posting all of my runs.
Right.
I did run 20 miles, and I'm proud of that. And it's not negated just because it's not on my phone.
No, it's amazing. I think we may have talked about this before. I know I talked with Bill Manning about this, just how numbers-oriented runners are. I mean, from looking at their watches to looking at their plans, and some folks, that really can throw them out of whack. And Bill's really been a trendsetter. I mean, the number of people who are now willing to run 7.03 or 7.13 or 17.
Many of us OCD people that wouldn't run the 0.17 at first because it wasn't a nice clean number. Now do it.
Right. So I'm also wondering, because I've actually been seeing in the news, I've following the World Series and hearing it's supposed to be a hot game one out there tonight, and so it sounds like you've been training in heat. Do you worry about going from the heat to potentially, some of the Richmond marathons here the last few years, it's been down in the 30s. Does that bother you at all? Do you worry about that?
I am nervous about that because I've run the half marathon twice in Richmond, and both times I wore capri pants and 2 long sleeve shirts, throwaway gloves, and a headband covering my ears. And I was fine for those 13 miles. I mean, it worked, but I just don't think that wearing that many clothes for 26 miles makes sense. I think I would get hot. So my plan is to wear shorts, and the Richmond Marathon training team provides us with a singlet so that we can wear it and we can be noticed on the course, so the coaches there can help us out and just have that extra, we're part of this team. So that's a tank top. So my plan for now is to wear a tank top and shorts when I run, which I don't know how I'm going to handle that in the cold. I bought these arm sleeves to try running with because I figured that would be great. And I wore them on one training run here. And I started running at, I think it's 6:30 in the morning. So it was in the 60s. And I had those on and they were fine. But that was like a 5-mile run. But it's been so hot lately that I can't wear these arm sleeves to even try to see how they're going to work. So I'm just hoping it all works out. I think I'm going to be one of those people wearing a trash bag and probably a throwaway, zip up jacket when I first start running so that I could take it off.
Right.
But I think I've been training in shorts and a tank top. That's pretty much what I'm going to run in, and just hope that my body temperature, heats up while I'm running.
Yeah, I think you're going the right direction. I think I'd much rather go from training out there in the heat and the hotter weather and then going to potentially cool or cold than the opposite, training in the cool and then headed out west and running a hot marathon. So at least I think you're coming the right direction.
Yeah, a lot of people have told me that just are a little bit more experienced than me, that if I can handle the runs that I'm doing and the paces that I'm doing now, that I really should have, hopefully, no problem on race day with just the excitement of everyone on the course and the anticipation and being there. Plus, with the temperatures cooler, it should make it a bit easier. So I'm hopeful about that.
I am too. Well, you're at the point in the training plan then. You've got those 3 20-milers done, and now the miles are winding down to shorter runs. Still some long ones in there, but definitely not 20-mile runs. And now it's pointed towards race day. I just wonder what some of your thoughts are as the miles come down a little bit, and we're within 3 weeks. I think you said before we started talking here, 18 days. So this idea that was really, and I may have said this to you before, I think I've said it on here before, I say it all the time, that for me, it was a lot more fun talking about running a marathon, all that time ahead of time, the banner about, I love talking about being a marathoner. It's a lot more fun talking about it than getting out there and running it. And this is the point where it really starts to get real. So I just wonder what some of your thoughts, emotions, what's happening right now as we start getting to that point.
Well, it's kind of crazy that I haven't run today yet. I have 5 miles to run, and I'm going to do that when I get home from work this afternoon. And this will be day 144 of my training.
Wow.
And that's kind of just overwhelming. It seems like so long, but then it also seems like it's gone by so fast. Like, I look back, I'm like, how has it been 144 days already? Like, this is crazy that it's gone by quickly, even though 144 days sounds like a long time. I calculated that I've run 675.1 miles in my training so far, which just knocks me out thinking that I've run that much. And thank you. It's great. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I know I can do it. On all my 20-mile runs, the thought of running 6.2 more miles is kind of overwhelming. Like, I haven't finished any of those runs going, I could totally go run another 10K right now, no problem.
Right.
Like, that has not crossed my mind. So I am still a little nervous that I've only run 20 miles, and the fact that 6.2 still seems like a bit to go. But then again, that's actually my happy pace. Like, if someone said, what's your favorite distance to run? I would say a 10K is my favorite distance to run. Like, that's generally what I like to do. So I just have to remember that once I hit 20. Julie, remind yourself, you like 10Ks. You like 10Ks. Yeah. So I'm excited that it's coming up. I'm nervous. I'm a little bit scared because, I really am confident I can finish, even if I end up getting real tired or something happens and I end up walking more than I think. I'm confident I will finish. So there's no real worry about not finishing. And I'm not trying to qualify for anything. So, there's no big pressure on me on times. But it's interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself when I don't have to do this anymore.
Right.
Like, I've been doing this training for so long that, once I come back from my awesome trip back east and I come home, it's like, am I going to want to run just for the fun of it? I wonder what my body's going to say if I decide, okay, I'm going to go for a run. I don't have a piece of paper telling me how many miles to go run.
Yeah.
Am I going to want to go run? Maybe I like running 10 miles, or maybe I only like running 2. Like, I just don't know. It's going to be interesting when it's up to me again and not up to what this piece of paper tells me.
No, I think I'll be as excited to follow that part of the journey as I have been this part, because it's a very real piece. I mean, for me, running that first marathon has led to this. You and I are having this conversation right now because I finished that marathon and it's like, there's something else, there's got to be something, there's some other big thing that I need to be doing. And, one thing led to another. And so I'm doing this with you and some similar things built around this idea that, there's just real strength that comes in running a marathon, and it just can't be over when I'm done running it. So how do I share that? How do I challenge myself to do bigger and bolder things? So I'll look forward to seeing what comes your way when you get done with this.
Thanks. Yeah, me too.
But I know you're going to do well. I think you're going to do great. You know, you said something today I was curious about. Is on Facebook. You posted a comment somewhere, and you said that watching the marathon finish last year at RVA was life-changing. I wondered what you were thinking when you said that.
You know, when I sat there on that finish line, I still had no desire to run a marathon. If someone would have asked me, even when we were walking away from that cheer hill, after I saw the last marathoner finish, I still wouldn't have said I was going to run a marathon. So it wasn't that I watched these people finish and said, wow, I want to do that, or I have to do that. The life-changing part was just watching people, I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, because it was just such a beautiful experience. I sat on that hill for a few hours after I finished my half marathon. And in the beginning, there was lots of people finishing. And, it was just constant cheering and clapping and socializing and just watching people. And, you'd see people that you knew coming through, which was really great. But when it got closer to the end, when we were waiting, you were coming in and a bunch of us were waiting to cheer you in, and other people started coming through that we didn't know, more straggling, not, the crowds were gone. Most of the spectators were gone. And you would see, there'd be nobody for a minute, and then you'd see somebody coming. And just the look of determination on these runners' faces that they were going to finish. And you don't know the reason that it took them so long. It could be that they were injured. It could be that they were just a slow runner. It could be that, who knows why? Why some people finish in 3 hours and some people finish in 7 hours. But just watching being there to cheer on people that I didn't know, just with all these other people also that I didn't know. I didn't know a lot of the Meg's Mile supporters that were there waiting to cheer you on and cheer on other finishers. I didn't know a lot of them until that day. I'd never had a moment to speak with them. And here, this group of people, we were all united together and all just smiling and cheering, and it just was good.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments where these are good people, and those strangers, they deserve to have people cheering for them just as much as if they would have finished in a huge pack of people in 4.5 hours when there's tons of people coming through the finish line. It just made me feel good and gave me hope about humanity.
Yeah, I got chills, just hearing you talk about that. Obviously, I was a part of that running in. But, Lachelle and I were and there were a bunch of folks up at the Marine Corps Marathon this weekend. And when Lachelle finished her 10K, we went to the 18-mile mark. And what a journey that was. I mean, being in a race where you have to get on the metro to get over to the mile mark, you're in a big city and a big race. But we got to mile 18, and we probably got over there about 2.5 hours into the race. So when we got there, the runners were there that were fairly quick runners. To get to the 18-mile mark in 2.5 hours is running at a pretty decent clip. And so we stood there and we watched these folks running through. They were looking pretty strong. Not many of them walking at all. But after we had been there a couple of hours, the group, and there were just so many runners. You and I were talking about that. I'm just still floored by how many people were out there running. But after we had been there, where it was the 4.5, probably going on the 5-hour mark in the race, watching those runners come by us who were alternating running, walking, and then almost exclusively walking, I turned to Lachelle and I said, "Those are my people right there." And I was half joking, but I was really very serious about it because I saw it in their face. That's where I was at mile 18 in my marathon. And I knew those folks were going to have to lean on what I had to, because I couldn't lean on a lot of training, a lot of running ability. I had to lean on grit, and I say it over and over. I had a long talk with God at mile 20 and said, if I'm finishing this thing, it's you, because I got nothing left at all. And I could see that in all of these folks' faces. And I knew they were sitting there thinking, oh my God, I've got 8 miles to go. How am I going to do it? But I knew they would. I knew they were going to, it was in their faces. They were going to draw on this grit and this strength and sheer determination to get it done. And those are the folks you're talking about sitting at the finish line watching coming in. Now, granted, I'm equally impressed. It's just a different kind. I was waiting on Lachelle to finish the 10K, so I got over there. And this young girl comes flying across the 10K finish line in 34 minutes and 7 seconds. She broke a 17-year-old track record there. To me, to think she ran a 10K at a little over, I guess, a 5-minute a mile pace, I am absolutely awed and just impressed by athletic ability. And that's an athletic person.
Yeah.
But there at the end, those marathons are these folks that are doing it just out of, they said they were going to do it, and they're somehow going to find a way to pick their leg up and just go one more step. And I'm equally, and probably because that is me, that's just, I'll never be a great athletic runner. I just relate to those folks. So, and I think that's the amazing part of a marathon, is we get to see all of that out there. It really is something that everybody can get out there and do, and everybody can learn something from it. I'm curious, you said a little bit ago when we were talking, you said I've changed some way, shape, or form. You said I'm a different person. I'm wondering how this process has changed you.
Yeah, when I started, I remember, I think in our first conversation, I said something about, I'm just a rule follower, and if my thing says to run exactly this, I'm going to run exactly this, and I'm not going to move a day around. And if it says to do this, I'm going to do this. And, that's not really doable in the long run, especially for 144 days. I would go crazy. So I've learned to be more graceful with myself and give myself more acceptance of when things have to be modified. So moving things around is no problem at all. In the beginning, I was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to run this on Sunday. I can't really run it on Saturday. It's like, no, get the miles done. And, of course, Julie, you're being smart. You have a commitment on this day, so flip your days. Big deal. So I'm totally cool with that, and I've done that a number of times, just moving days around to make my life easier. And then there's been a couple days also where I've had, 10 miles or 9 miles days on Wednesdays. 9 or 10 mile Wednesdays. And Wednesdays are a very difficult day for me to run because my kids have sports going into 8:30 at night. So it's late by the time we get home, and I often don't want to start a run of 9 or 10 miles that late at night. So the first few times I would run really early in the morning. And then I realized I am not a fan of running outside in the dark. My neighborhood, I feel, is safe, but still running at 5 in the morning, it just makes me a little nervous. So after doing that a couple of times, I decided it wasn't for me, and I didn't want to go running at 5 in the morning. So I decided, well, I can split up my miles on those days. So, for instance, I had a 10-mile run day, and I was able to squeeze 5 in the early afternoon, and I told myself, okay, I'll have the other 5 later at night, because I could do that. And I got tired. I ended up falling asleep, putting one of my kids to bed, and I woke up like at 11:30 at night, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to jump on the treadmill for 5 more miles. And I said, no, I should do it. And then I said, well, no, Julie, don't do it. And then I said I should do it. And I just had this back and forth with myself, little angel on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder.
Yeah.
And, in that instance, I told myself, you know what, you could run for 5 miles and you'd be miserable because you wouldn't be enjoying it. You're tired, and it wouldn't be a great run. And then when you're done, you're probably going to be all wound up, so you're not going to be able to go to sleep. So then your sleep's going to suffer, which means tomorrow you'll be in a bad mood, which means tomorrow's run you're not going to want to get up and do. So just go to bed. Like, okay, you got 5 miles in instead of 10. It's not the end of the world. So that happened twice on my training plan. There was a 9-mile day where I only did 6 miles, and there was a 10-mile day where I only did 5 miles. And there were other times when I just didn't feel like running, but in those instances, I really didn't have a reason. And that's when the devil-angel duo were going back and forth, and I gave in to the angel, and I said, there's no reason not to run. Right. You're not tired. It's not that late. You're just being lazy, Julie. Don't fall into laziness excuses. Like, those runs you have to do. And when there's instances where it really, you can logically say why not running is a better choice, then that's okay. So I did a little calculation, and in my 143 days so far of running, 15.9 miles didn't happen. Of my 106, I've run 675, and I was supposed to run 691. So I've only missed 15.9 miles, and I'm real proud of that. And it's only been a couple of days that I modified, and only one run that I actually missed completely, and that was 3 miles. And I traveled across the country on that day, and my alarm went off late, so I totally give myself a pass on that one. And it was only 3 miles, so I didn't give up any of the hard ones.
I don't know if I'm more impressed by the miles or more impressed by the fact that you've calculated down to the mile how many you didn't run. I need to ask, has Andreas figured up how many of the miles in his plan he didn't run?
Oh my gosh. Oh boy.
So
yes,
how
my
is
lovely husband and his training plan?
How is Andreas and the Andreas plan going? You knew we had to go here.
Plan, yeah. The Andreas plan seems to be working wonderfully for Andreas. He's doing what he's doing, and I had my big 20 mile the other day, and he had 3 miles, and we were both he's like, I got my run in. I'm like, seriously, 3 miles? He's like, hey, I got my run in. So I don't really, I don't know what he's doing still, and it bothers me. It does. I think I may have been more supportive in the beginning because I wanted to be supportive of him, and I was like, hey, we can run our own races, and yay, he does his thing and I do mine, and, of course I'm still proud of him, and I'm excited to be going through this journey with him, and I'm super glad we're both traveling out there to run our first marathon. But it is frustrating to me knowing that, I'm doing all this training and really, careful about things. And I have to think out my days. When I wake up in the morning, I have to think in advance. I work full time. We have 3 children. When am I going to get my run in? Like, I have to plan it all out. And I don't want to speak for him too much, but I think he doesn't really plan it out in advance. He just wakes up and he's like, oh, okay, I got time to go do this. I'm going to go do this, where I can't just do that.
Right. So, and I don't know. I've been loosely following his plan, or maybe I should say following his spontaneity. But I think his longest spontaneous run has been, was there a 17-miler in there?
There was, and it was so random, Keith. Like, he went out for a run, and he left, and then I was doing a few things around the house, and then I left. And I got back, and I said to the kids, hey, where's Dad? And they said, I don't know. And I go, what do you mean you don't know? Is he back from his run yet? They said, no. And I had just run 10 miles. It's like, but he left before me, and he runs faster than me. And he doesn't have a tracker that I can kind of live track him. So I was kind of nervous. Well, actually, I was very nervous. I kind of freaked out for a second. I immediately called his cell phone, and he answered, a little bit out of breath. And he's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, oh, my gosh, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm almost home. I'm like, what do you mean you're almost home? Like, what did you do? I thought you were dead on the side of the road somewhere. Like, my heart was palpitating. I was so nervous that something happened to you. And he's like, oh, no, I'm almost home. I'm like, okay. And I kind of calmed down. He comes home, and he's like, whew, I just ran 17 miles. And I'm like, what? Like, who does that? Who says I'm going for a run and then run 17 miles? Oh, Andreas does. So,
yeah. So yeah, I guess since he hasn't run that far since, he's been tapering.
Yeah. He has been tapering for quite a while. And, his birthday is this weekend. And there is a half marathon on his birthday. It's the first one of this new series in San Diego. And he said, hey, I want to run this on my birthday. And I looked at my training plan, and I had 12 miles scheduled for that day. So I said, hey, here, look at me, I'm being kind of crazy. Instead of running 12, I'm actually going to run 13.1. So that's a little out of my comfort zone there, not following the plan.
Right.
But so we're both signed up to run that. So, that's going to be, I think, his last run, because that is just less than 2 weeks, or that's like 2 weeks from race day is when we're going to be running this half marathon. So I think, that's it for him, is that 13, and that'll do it. So we'll see how he does.
Well, we will. And based on what you've said, I guess I'm predicting he'll do quite well. It sounds like I'm more worried after he does do quite well, how Julie will do emotionally with that. That's my fear.
That is a good point. And you know what? He's pretty fast, especially compared to me. And I have no doubt that he's going to finish this half marathon, probably in about 2 hours. And I'm hoping to get a PR on this race, which is about 2:08 for me is what I'm shooting for, and I'm going to need to push myself to do that, especially since I've been trying to slow myself down to actually push myself. It's going to be interesting, but that's what I would like to try to do. So I know he's going to run fast, and he's going to feel great, and I'm going to be envious, but I just keep telling him, you can run fast for 13 miles, but you have another 13 after that. I just don't think he's gotten the pacing down, so that's my fear. And then my other fear is we're going to run into each other at mile 22, let's say, and I'm going to be, in my mind, okay, finish this, 4.2 miles left, just get this done. And I'm going to run into him, and he's going to be spent, and he's just going to be walking and just going, oh my gosh, I'm done. And I'm going to want to be with him, but I'm also not going to want to stop my run for him because I've worked so hard. And
I'm just picturing this playing out in like a sitcom or a movie.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I should live feed it or something when I do run into him. Or then that's my one fear. But then I guess my secret fear, which I will say now, is that no, he's going to just kill it. He's going to totally beat me, which of course I'd be happy for him, but I will be so pissed off if he, honestly, if he's like ahead of me, I'm just going to be, I don't want him to fall behind, but I don't want him to fall ahead or, get ahead. So he basically can't win because whatever he does, it's going to mess with me, which is my own issue.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
It has been a fun part of this story. It'll be a nice sidebar. I just hope it doesn't become the bar when race day comes. But I am almost 100% certain your path has been the preferred path to set up for a successful day. We will see. Because, in all seriousness, 17 miles. That's 9 miles to go. That's running 9 miles further than your longest run. I think Andreas will probably end up being one of those me guys that just has to rely on some just sheer grit and determination those last 6 or so. And it seems to me like he's got that. But it'll be fun to follow. Like I said, it'll be a nice sort of side story to follow you both. We'll be rooting like crazy for both of you to do really well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then it's also like I told him, I didn't want him to text me or something when he's done, because if he's done and I'm still running and I get a text, hey, I'm at the finish line, I'm going to be annoyed. But then I also do I wait for him at the bag check? Do I wait for him at the water station? Do I go to the cheering hill to meet him, or is he already there? All the stuff in my brain, I need to just let it go and not try to worry about it. Because I try to kind of plan things out, and I think race day really, to have a successful race day, I need to just kind of throw the plans out the window and just say, it's going to work out.
Yes.
This is what I've trained for. This is whatever happens, and just enjoy it, because what I don't want to happen is to get too stressed out and too caught up in the minutia that I don't enjoy the experience, because I'm never going to have another first marathon day. So I really want to appreciate it and take it all in and just, embrace it.
I think you're having the right conversations with yourself. I think, it's fun to talk about Andreas and all the other things that potentially could happen that day. But the reality is, you've run 600, almost 700 miles. You've run 3 20-mile runs. You've worked way too hard to get sidetracked by something that doesn't matter. You have one thing that matters that day. Line up, run the way you've been running, head for that finish line, and get there, And Andreas will just have to know, mile 22, you're running by him. See ya.
Yeah.
See ya. Your training, you can tell him on the way by, your training plan called for this at mile 22.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, well, like I said, we are pulling for you both from, the running standpoint. From a personal standpoint, can't wait to see both of you and everybody that's coming to Richmond here in a few weeks. It's always so much fun. And this year, though, just the added bonus of so many folks. I've had the blessing of getting to talk with you throughout this, and it's just been a joy to me. But there are so many people that are going to be wearing that face of first-time marathoner or first-time half marathoner. I think there's even some first-time 8K folks. Just knowing what that experience is like, I just look so forward to being a part of people, that story, that day, so many folks, because I do know, and it's not just about accomplishing that. I know just how life-changing it's been when you cross that and you realize, you know what? I can do a lot more with this life of mine than I ever dreamed that I could do. I never dreamt I could run a half marathon. And I'd have bet you my wife and kids I could not run a marathon. But I did those things. And it's nice. The medals are hanging behind me while we're sitting here talking. But more importantly, the number of doors that have opened up because I've just thrown out this whole idea of, I don't think I can do that. Or, that would be hard. I'm running my second marathon in January because of that exact sort of thought process when I wanted to go down to Houston and run with some of these folks that I, raised some money to help the hurricane relief down there. And I went to the website and the half marathon was sold out and all they had was the marathon. And my first thought was, I don't think I can run another marathon. And this one has a 6-hour time limit. The last one took me about 7. And my mind started to go down that road. And then I just thought, you know what? These folks struggling through the hurricane are facing some hard stuff. I have faced hard stuff. That's not good enough anymore. So boom, clicked, registered, and here I go. So I think it is life-changing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it'll be fun.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
A quick note, another life-changing thing, which I promise you one day you will do one of these, Keith. Mark my words.
Here
we
go.
Take an ice bath.
Now, who paid you for this commercial break?
Well, it's funny. I'm sitting here at my desk having this conversation. You were saying, your medals are behind you and this and that. And as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my desk and I'm looking at a picture of my daughter. And she's 8 and she helped me with my ice bath this past weekend. And, she dumped the ice for me. And she thought it was so fun. She goes, Mom, can I take an ice bath? And I said, well, you need to run first. And she doesn't want to run with me. She plays soccer, and she's a great little runner, but she doesn't want to go out and actually run just to run. And I told her, if you run 3 miles with me, I will give you an ice bath. And she's brought it up. This was Sunday. She's brought it up 3 times in 3 days. When can I take that ice bath, Mom? When can I take that ice bath? So I'm going to make her run with me, and she's going to get a little ice bath. And you, my friend, are going to see how addicting they are because they're amazing. I have no soreness after my long runs. I've taken 4 ice baths, 18 miles, 20, 20, and 20. And I actually look forward to them now.
Oh my!
You can believe it. Yeah.
Here we go. We're playing the little kids card, and I look forward to them. I mean, my kids actually begging me for an ice bath. Oh, there's no end to this pressure.
When when my daughter takes her ice bath, I am going to make a little video.
Yes.
And we are going to send it to you.
I know
and
you
say,
will.
Look, Keith, look how much fun this is, Keith.
Yes. Yes. I know you will. No, thank you. No, thank you. But
I called my hotel in Ashland that I'm staying at to ensure they had a bathtub so that I can take my ice bath after the marathon, and they assured me that all rooms had bathtubs.
okay, yeah, I remember. I commented, just tell me you didn't just call your hotel to make sure you'll be able to take an ice bath. This is ridiculous. It's getting out of hand. Lachelle
it's
has started a movement that I want no part of.
God bless Lachelle. Yes, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, well, that's too much fun. This whole conversation, the 3 times we've done this, and I hope you'll do it a 4th with me when you're done so we can really process that finish line experience. But
yes.
It has been, I mean it, it's been a joy for me. I hope others have enjoyed it. And I think it will be for folks who are contemplating it. There'll be 3 podcasts they can go back and kind of just listen to what you've gone through. It is fun. I've listened to your running confidence grow throughout this process, and I've got to hear you change in terms of some of the flexibility and some of the willingness to take on some of the curveballs and throw them to the side and just keep going. So I'm really proud of you. I am just excited about you all coming, and I cannot wait to see you running towards that finish line.
Thank you. I'm really excited. This has been really great for me too, and I'm glad that I have this to go back and listen to in the future. And I'm just a normal person. There's nothing special about me. I am just a 42-year-old mom who lives a normal life. I'm not an athlete by any means. I'm just an average Joe. And, anyone else that's listening that feel, that's the same, hey, you want to do something it's a great, great learning experience. And if I can do it, anyone can do it for sure. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being that inspiration, and we're going to follow you, friend. I can't wait.
You.
To 3 weeks is going to go fast, and we'll be at that starting line before you know it. But just keep thinking about the race. Just keep thinking about those 26 miles, and put everything else aside, and you're going to get it. You're going to get it done.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And just even talking to you is making me excited again. The nervousness is still there, obviously, but now I'm like, wait, this is exciting. Yeah, I'm doing this.
Good.
So now I'm pumped for myself. So thank you.
Good. No, you need to be. You've worked hard at it. And the good news is this weekend you get one of those miles back you lost. So you'll have to recalculate your.
That's right. Yes. I am. Thank you for that. I'm going to make that note on my little training chart. You're right.
You're a delight. You're awesome. And I can't wait to see you. We will see you soon. Thank you, Julie, so much.
Thanks, my friend. See you soon.
Yep. Have a great day.
Well, like I promised you, that was a fun interview. Julie has just been a joy for me to interview and have these conversations with over the last few months. Her journey has been a fun one to follow, and I can't wait to follow the finish line feeling as she really caps off this few months of taking on this huge challenge in her life. Here come 2 weekends from now at the Richmond Marathon here in Richmond. It's a huge weekend for me and a lot of the folks that I've interviewed on this podcast. A lot of them come from this Meg's Mile supporters group that formed to really build on the legacy left behind by Meg Menzies, a young mother hit and killed by a drunk driver January 13th, 2014. So coming up on 4 years ago now. But what has been left behind is just this group of passionate runners, passionate people who more than really care about each other's running success, find ways to lift each other up in everyday life challenges. And so Julie has responded to just some of the indirect pressure that comes in this group every once in a while to take on bigger challenges, take on things you just never really thought you were capable of. And so we all look forward to following Julie come Richmond Marathon weekend and joining together. It's always a large group that comes together to cheer each other on, to celebrate big finishes. And so it's going to be a fun weekend. You can go to my website, 2tim47.com, TWOTIM47.com, and you can find some of the different social media links where you can connect with me. I'll really be posting a lot Richmond Marathon weekend about just some of the different things people are taking on, a lot of the ways people will be running to dark with the light that they have experienced in their own running journeys, and this united light that we all feel and love to share when we're together. So again, you can go to 2tim47.com, TWOTIM47.com, and follow along that weekend and tune in for some future podcast. I'm sure there will be some that come out of that weekend, stories that will emerge that I just know you will all need to hear, and I'll be glad to pick them up and share them. And you can always go to, again, my website. You can find links there where you can reach out. If there's stories or people that you want to hear about, things that you think might bring some light to others, you're always welcome to share those with me. I would gladly pursue them and get them out there. So keep that in mind. Until then, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Get out there this week and run some big runs. If you don't run, cheer somebody on who is. It's always a big boost. And if neither of those things are your deal, well, I'm just glad you're here finding some light in a running journey that maybe is something that really doesn't interest you, but maybe the stories bring you the light that I hope to bring. Until next time, have a great day.